Okay. Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Raynard Hannah, and he has an amazing story. Hi, Ray.
Hello, Peggy.
Thank you for coming on. We just met today and we're doing it tonight, so I think it'll be great. And I'm just going to let you take the floor and start wherever you like and take as long as you like. Okay.
Okay. What are we beginning with?
Want to start with what led up to your NDE?
Okay. Well, let's see if I could where we could start here. Well, what I've spoken about in the past is how I went from a far right extremist politically, and and I let that get away with me, like so many people do when they go too far left or right, and and having been an agnostic most of my life, what I didn't realize then, I thought, well, I don't want to follow Satan because I was raised Catholic, so I had some idea of Jesus and Satan, but I didn't prescribe to either one of them. But I did know as an agnostic that there are dark and light forces because I did have multiple paranormal experiences my entire life, and to this day, months, years will go by, but still, I got quite a bunch of them, and uh, and so I realized, I didn't want to mess with demonic forces, but I guess I was, regardless. If I allowed my extremist political views to lead me to hate, well, that's Satan's signature, power right there. So I was just an open vessel. If you're not I don't think you're any more protected as an agnostic from dark forces as you are an atheist. Maybe even as an atheist, you're worse off. Um, but you're not much more protected if you don't have a protective force out there that you're asking protection of. And the only force I know of is Jesus and his angels. But but in any case, so I was raised in such a way. I also, I'm an idealist. I have a vision of the world I want to live in, and I saw the modern world going a completely opposite direction. And still, as a right-wing conservative to this day, I'm just a moderate now, with no hate in my heart, but it was there. But I think it was because, you know, I'm young, and young men are more prone to anger and violence, um, uh, and I ran with that. And I was also witty, so I thought I was, I held a good argument. And I thought also, I liked adventure, and I went to activists, protests, and whatnot. We fought in the streets with the far left, and and then I got into I was always a metalhead, and I like, I started in the early '80s, and metal got more extreme, and I got more extreme with it, and all that was just a perfect storm developing inside of me. My uh, far right extreme views, and my extreme metal, um, and the lifestyle, just all percolated, and my it seems I'm born with melancholy I can't seem to get rid of even after I've found Jesus. Uh, so there's that, and I've been suicidal since 17, 18 years old, and uh, so all this building, and then I was committing. I started taking to the road as a tattooist, professional tattooist, starting in 93, 94. And by 96, I was already living in Frankfurt, Germany for a year, tattooing out there. So I just used it as an excuse to travel. And I traveled much of the East Coast multiple times, a little of the Midwest, and a bit of Western Europe. And with that, and being a taphophile, I've always been a taphophile. So there's all these things which means I'm fascinated with cemeteries. Been to a vast multitude of cemeteries, and even just doing godless acts with, having sex in cemeteries. This hasn't been mentioned before, but yeah, I did a lot of that. So it was a perversion of mine, and wasn't necrophile. I had sex with living people, but
Yes.
not but all this must have accumulated, must have attracted a lot of demonic, a lot of negative forces around me, and plus just by about 2000, the year 2000, 2001, my first shotgun. It was a police issued shotgun, double barreled, and sawed off, and I got that. I didn't get that for any reason but to shoot myself one day, and I wanted it on the side when I just couldn't take enough of my depressive emotions, and I held on to that for a while. An ex-girlfriend had it confiscated once by the police in Connecticut. Then I moved to New Hampshire, and she got back together with me. Then it was a acidic relationship, toxic, and she had my guns confiscated by the police again. And both times I had them restored to me because maybe she was just protecting me, and I didn't realize it at the time. But I didn't have any criminal record at that point. But man, I committed a lot of crimes up at that point. I guess I was just good at it because I was just building up all these hate crimes that I was committing in Europe, up and down the East Coast. And I never set out to commit these hate crimes. I just got triggered, like the far left often we hear gets triggered and they lash out. But the way I lashed out, I'd see something far left propaganda agenda based, and I would say, well, I'm attacking that. I'm going out at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and I'm devise a quick plan, and I'm attacking that. And then I'd attack it so badly that it would show up in newspapers the next day, like the big papers. And I collected all of these newspaper clippings, front page, and laminated them. Had a stack that thick. And by the time I finally got caught for all that, and I was living a double life. I was with my wife about 2008 through 2016, and she finally left me. And I was living this double life behind her back. I wish she cared for me more and saw the signs and said, Ray, but I was agnostic and I couldn't help. I was in Satan's hands, and I speak of all this as past tense. This is not the me you're talking to today. I've transformed vastly, now I could go weeks. Wow, I don't even think I lied, for weeks, mild lie, I'm quite sinless, for some time now. It's been a lot of work that God's been working on me since my Christian born again, taking in of the Christian faith by about 2017, and about 2018, 19, I was baptized, and the work's just ongoing on my soul, on my character. But boy, I always said, boy, I'm going to be quite a project for Jesus when he gets a hold of me, But and I am, and he hasn't worked on the depression and the suicidal tendencies yet. I wonder if I'm supposed to live with that now, because I say, just because an amputee finds Jesus, his arm doesn't magically grow back because he has Jesus in his life. Hardships are still there. In fact, pick up your cross and follow me. It's not supposed to be any easier. You do have some benefits. You have an afterlife that's much more promising, and until then, you do have angelic protection. And I found that I had a great deal of angelic protection since long before I was saved. That I've went into these stories before too, because I know, Jesus and the angels, they live outside of time and they can see your timeline. And in fact, we plan our lives before we get here, and they knew I was going to find them eventually. So they were looking out for me and saved me a few times before, from death, a number of times before I finally realized, what's my purpose in life, and what the spiritual truths are. And so eventually, like I said, my hate crimes just, finally caught up with me. If you commit any crime, whatever it may be, you do it enough times, you roll the dice so many times, eventually it's going to end up snake eyes, And so finally it caught up with me in 2012 when I committed my latest crimes, and in Concord, New Hampshire. And Obama was in office, so the world was, really leaning left. So I was really demonized as soon as I was exposed for what I was doing. And I was just vandalizing. Now, keep in mind, I was never violent. I could defend myself at a riot or something. That's about as violent as I got. If you came after me, I'm defending myself. But otherwise, I just committed, vandalism crimes, and not okaying that or anything. But at least I wasn't violent, And so this was vandalism in the sense that I was writing graffiti on the homes of immigrants that from Africa, and I was saying what I thought about the whole situation of inviting, and they were offered homes in the same neighborhoods. People from there were struggling with rents, and these people are living rent free. I still don't think that's a great idea, but who would? I mean,
Yes.
if you're common sense, but still, to go about it the way I did was terrible. And
You like a skinhead?
you could say that. Like, I probably even look like a skinhead now just because I shave my head these days, only because I'm balding and it's less noticeable. But but it's not hard to imagine. I'm white as the day is long. And that's another funny thing, because I may have been a skinhead, but there was times in my life, I had that black best friend growing up as a child. I had a black roommate who was blacker than the ace of spades as a person, skin color wise. And yet he was a comic book artist, and he drew for Vampirella comics, and at the time in the early 90s. And we made great friends and roommates for years. And I was in an all Mexican psychobilly band called John Hex's Creep Show out of Massachusetts for years. I was the only white guy. And these were all during the years where you'd say, this guy's a miserable, hateful skinhead. So go figure, I think I was just coming, I'm a good guy. I think I was always a good guy. I just got caught up in frustration that turned into hate. And if I look at the world today, I could still see the same things going on, but I see the world starting to wake up, starting to get more moderate, starting to get a little less. The world's got to be center based. It can't be too left or too right. I think Satan doesn't care if you're a right winger. He don't care if you're a left winger. He will use either political aisle, to conduct his agenda. And right now, I just see them, he's using the far left. But there was times in the past he uses the far right with the KKK, the Nazis, that sort of thing. But now you have Antifa, you have, I won't go on, but there's other extremist groups on the left that we're having the problems with today, burning down our cities and rioting. And that can't be any better. That's still Satan, and it seems like he's always working with, the non-believers, the atheists, the agnostics, however, politically they might land. But regardless, so, I ended up facing that crime. I was about to lose my tattoo shop of 8 years at the time. I was about to lose my home or my wife, going to jail. I was looking at 15 to 30 years in jail. I ended up only doing 8 months. More about that later, but yeah, I said, yeah, this is reason enough. I've always wanted to kill myself. By that point, I bought a 32 caliber handgun, only months before. And I took my wife out to the shooting range, and she shot it. And that was the only time I shot it. It was at that one time in the shooting range, and then another time on myself on my birthday in November 7th, 2013. And I don't know why it was on my birthday, just to be melodramatic or something, I suppose. But it's ruined my birthdays ever since. Don't do it, But I don't recommend suicide to anyone anyway. But I mean, certainly don't on your birthday. It just ruins it forever. You can imagine. But in any case, yeah, so I said, well, this is certainly reason enough. I just said I'm going to use these guns on myself someday when something happens that, that just gets so bad that I just don't want to face it anymore. And that became, the precursor. Oh, there's good enough reason right there. I don't want to face jail time and blah, blah, blah. So guess I'll use that rule, that. So I went ahead and did. I hate to repeat myself, but I know I'm only saying it for the first time on your show. But yeah, so I went out to a graveyard in Hopkinton, New Hampshire, one of many I enjoyed visiting, well, I harbored my brother-in-law at the time. He took both my guns. The court said someone's got to take your guns. You're on house. What was that? I wasn't quite house arrest. I could still run my business, but I had to be home by a certain time, and that was annoying me. And he confiscated my guns. I didn't know where they were hiding, but we visited his house one time. My wife was visiting her sister, and I was rummaging around the garage trying to find my guns. And I didn't know what I was going to find. I doubt I was going to find anything I can recall. He wasn't home, so I could rummage around. And I found in a beat up old box my 32 caliber. Now, if I found my shotgun, that one I had for 20 years or so at that time, whatever it was, that I got in 2000, we wouldn't be here talking, because I was going to use something on me, and you weren't going to survive a shotgun. And I don't care how much divine intervention. I don't know how the angels would have got me out of that one, because it was literally an angel that saved me from my shotgun experience. More about that if you want to get into it. But so that was it. I knew at that time I was probably going to some sort of hellish existence of the afterlife, because I was brought up Catholic, and I did believe in some form of heaven and hell, but I just didn't want to prescribe to any of it. And but at that time, when I'm in the back of the graveyard by myself on a rainy day, I decided to talk to God. I don't even know, I felt dirty even talking to God, because at that point I just led this miserably hedonistic lifestyle for so long. I just knew if there was a Jesus, what would he have to do with me, And so I said, look, Jesus, if I'm not supposed to kill myself, or maybe I even said to the angels, I can't recall who, I was just talking to good forces. And if I'm not supposed to do this, I'm leaving it in your hands to allow me to survive, or let me die right here. And I just devised this on the spot. I said, I'm going to hold the gun way out here in my hand, Glock, ready to go, and I'm going to swing it towards myself when I get the willingness to do so. And you could grab my hand and aim it any way you like, that I'll survive it. So maybe I'll be blind if it shoots me here, or maybe I'll be, mentally retarded somehow. I don't know what's the end result. Maybe I'll, be a vegetable in a wheelchair for the rest of my life if I'm supposed to survive. you know, I'm leaving it to you, God. If I'm supposed to live, I'll live, and I'll change my life, you know, in the long run. But if I'm, you know, meant to die, well, here we go. So I took time with that, and I'm listening to headphones, uh, you know, because I'm so music orientated. I'm so musically addicted. My whole life needs a soundtrack behind it. You know, I almost want to put music behind our conversation right now. I'm just that musically, you know, caught up in music. You know, for whatever reason. And I'm listening to Amber Asylum, very somber, you know, folk, all girl band, folk music, very sad band. But you know, that's music that metalheads listen to. That isn't necessarily metal. And so then I go ahead, I get the strength up, and sure enough, I'm swinging it, and I'm just gonna pull the trigger when it's somewhere near my head, and sure enough, as I get to about the halfway point, and something grabs me, and it doesn't stop my hand, but I do feel some sensation right here. That right now I'm doing it. I'm not feeling nothing. I just feel my arm coming towards my head. But that night or that day, I came, and this vibratory feeling that's otherworldly. It's something that might have a spirit force or an angel. I'm not saying which, because I wasn't told. But I do know what spirits feel like when they touch it, because I felt this many years before, and I explained it to Jeff. Is that you know, when spirits want to touch it in an aggressive manner, it feels like an electric you know, charge, but it doesn't burn. It doesn't leave a mark, and but it does kind of hurt. It feels like it's gonna hurt, but really it ends up not necessarily hurting. But it's so exhilarating, so much similar to electricity, that you just want to get away from it. But it was that feeling once again. That time it was by a ghost. That's a whole nother story. I explained it to Jeff, but this time maybe it was a ghost, but I think it was an angel. And you know, so it grabs my arm, and that makes me assume, you know, looking back, that it was aiming. It did take my arm. It took up my challenge, that I thought nothing was going to happen. You know,
Now, had a
I'm
veteran
going to shoot myself and die. But this
something?
thing, go ahead.
Had
Sorry.
a veteran told you something about where to shoot if you were gonna, if a person was gonna do that, that come to mind while you were praying?
Yeah, that's right. The funny thing was that, you know, when there was a party sometime earlier, and veteran was over, and he, you know, he got into his stories, and he said, if you're ever captured by the enemy, and you still have your gun, and you don't want to end up being tortured by them, you just shoot yourself right behind the head, you know, and this, you know, right behind the ear, and it's a definite death. Well, I wasn't aiming. Something was aiming for me, and the odd thing was where the trajectory happened, it was right behind the ear, and right where he told me you should do it. And so why am I not dead? You know, there. Well, I was technically dead. I died 3 times. Once from the initial shot, but you know, I was deep in the woods, deep in the cemetery. Who was going to find me if God didn't revive me and animate my body to get back to the car and get the phone, little flip phone I had. But then I did die 2 more times on the way to the hospital. That was in the hospital record, or I wouldn't have known that. I didn't have 2 additional near-death experiences that I recall from that. But yeah, so I had that. The thing grabs me, and it shoots me there. Of course, that sends your neck flying. I could just feel my neck crunching right now as I did that. You know, as a long-term effect. I don't have pain, thankfully, in my neck, but yeah, it's a little crunchy in there from that stuff. And so yeah, what happened was the gun went off, and you know, the bullet's going that way. That's funny. The funny thing, the bullet goes that way. That's the way my spirit went. It went that way along with the bullet. It got pushed right out of me, off to my side, off to the body's side, and then I began to gravitate or levitate somewhere magnetically. Like I didn't know where I was going. I just knew at that point I was out of the body, and there was no like, oh, I'm alive. I'm staring right ahead of me. You know, I see an old New England stone wall. We're pretty famous for them, and just beyond that is a cemetery because I stepped over the wall to a rock, and to sit on that rock, and so I'm looking at the New England cemetery. Do this, boom, and I just got pushed out. I never lost consciousness. My consciousness just went from inside my skull to over here now, you know, and and yet I don't quite recall what I was seeing at that stage. It was more colors. I kind of recall blues now, blues and blacks, but yeah, I just got levitated somewhere until I was in complete perfect blackness. Um, and no blackness, you know, you can't seal off a room from light enough to create that blackness here on earth. That this blackness is so, you know, exaggerated. I don't know how to explain it, but you know how they say colors, there's colors on the other side when you cross over further than I did, and you see these colors that don't exist here, and the colors that you do recognize are far more brilliant. Well, I that's how I would explain this blackness. It was also very exaggerated, and but it was also a very peaceful place, and I felt I didn't have a body. I felt I was just a consciousness, and I was just floating there. I wasn't thinking of anything. I was just an awareness at that point. But oh, before that, so I remained in that state for a while. I can't tell how long because you know there's no time on the other side as we understand it. But before that, I do recall saying one more thing, like I got pushed out the body, and then I started levitating outside of my will. And I did say at that time, here we go, you know, and I'll always, you know, remember, I must have said, here we go on carnival rides, we've all said, here we go at some point, multiple times in our life. But I'll never forget that one time when I said, here we go, because everything about that experience is just cemented into your mind. That's why we think this is the matrix and that's the reality, you know, because everything we remember on that side, we can recall to perfection, including our short little snippets of moments that we bring back from that side over to here. And yeah, so here we go. And that was odd because I could have been going to hell for all I know, but I was excited. I was like, here we go. I remember that was the first word out of my mouth as a spirit form. And it wasn't a mouth, it was just a thought, I guess. But there I went, and I'm in this black realm, and I'm just waiting for the next thing. Now, you know, at that time, I never heard of this black realm. But of course, you live through that, and I went through everything else, the recovery and the jail time, and then you know, my born again experience. And I've had all that time to, you know, try to read about and find videos of what that place was, and I had it confirmed to me that, wow, how relieving it is to know that other people go there too. And they explain it the same way, profound blackness, but peaceful. You would think such a place is scary, but it gives you no reason to be scared there. I now understand it to be some sort of waiting room where, well, what do we do with this guy? You know, what do we do with this person until, you know, if they don't want to interact with me. Now, so many people get they see dead loved ones, they see Jesus when they're expecting to see, you know, Muhammad or something. It's funny, but if they're Muslim, I find interesting, but I didn't see anybody. Now, that's not to say that they didn't have those experiences. I feel cheated. I didn't get it that far into it, you know, but I know they had these experiences because that's you know, enough to know from my own experience. But I honestly believe I'm on this path in my written, you know, when I wrote this lifetime with whoever I was supposed to meet in this lifetime, whatever spirit guides and twin flames and all that, that I wasn't allowed to have any real direct interaction with the afterlife. I was supposed to figure all this out on my own. And even to this day, even, when I feel like I'm making a perfect connection with Jesus and I'm filled with the Holy Spirit, he never talks to me. I know other very good Christians who actually can hear from Jesus or hear from angels. Never me. There's no, I must have wrote in my life's plan, like, don't talk to me. Let me figure this one out on my own. I'm also, I also tend to believe there's reincarnation. Now, I don't want to believe in reincarnation. I absolutely loathe the idea of reincarnation. I hate the idea of having to come back to this world for not getting it right, or because the spirit thinks it's just a joyride. And even though the human is like, why do you put me through this? The spirit realizes it as what it really is. It's just compared to eternity, so they're not worried about it, but we're sitting here like, when does this end? Especially if you're suicidal like me, or just deeply depressed all the time. So there's that, but
So your experience was complete blackness and just like a peaceful. That was your.
Oh yeah, that was the whole experience, except for, I could have stayed there because it was so peaceful. It gets better than that. It gets so much better. Maybe it wouldn't have got better for me. I might have had the hellish experience, so I was at least expecting a hellish experience. That fewer NDEers have, but often now I believe that a lot of people, that they shape their hellish experience because they go there with these expectations, and we do shape our afterlife by our will. And so if I'm crossing over expecting to go to hell, that's exactly where I'm going, whether I really deserved hell or not, because I'm expecting it. So I'm going to shape that around myself. So I think I was being protected from experiencing my own, hellish NDE, because it would have been a whopper. Because I am a horror illustrator. I'm a horror black metal musician. We've recorded some very intensely dark albums. So I got this imagination that would have created such a hell around me. I wouldn't want to experience it. That's what nobody would. And so I think I was spared that, but I was drawn back. I was just there. Then all of a sudden, not knowing quite how long I was there, but all of a sudden I felt like a ball, like I wasn't, a ball, but which would explain what orbs are, But then this ball I started getting sucked back, and I felt like I was going back the same direction I came. And I just started protesting immediately. No, I'm just screaming out, like such anguish, like, because I knew I was going back, and I knew my body was broken on the ground, and I didn't want to go back into that thing. And but I was going back beyond my will, and I didn't get to talk to anybody. I didn't even, So.
How did they find you in the cemetery?
Well, nobody. Well, here's what happened. So I was, I wake up in my body, and I'm still spurting blood out the side of my head, and I got it running down my side, and I can't see. Everything's white, like so blurry white that. But there is some sense of, like if there's gravestones ahead of me, they're just shadowy shapes. So I'm basically going back to the car with, oh no, what happened next was I woke up, and the first thing I did, I'm feeling around on the ground for the gun, because I just forgot whatever deal I made with the angels. Like if you let me survive, I'll change my ways. That whole thing, I'm going to let you aim it and all that. I forgot I even said that. That was, I forgot that for a long time until it came back to me. But But I just wanted to go back to that world. I was like, I like that place. I'm going back there. I know what's waiting for me here, and I'm a mess. You know, my brain just everything felt like a mess, and my neck was, you know, severe whiplash. I almost broke my neck, and so I'm feeling around for this thing, and I find the gun, and I pick it up. I recock it, and you know, it's that kind of, you got to pull back, and and then I go ahead and I put it to here instead. I think my temple, and I should, you know, at the time, you know, they say to your heart, but I, for some reason, didn't like that idea. So I'll go to my temple, and the gun's jammed, Peggy. The thing ends up jammed, and it just felt, you know, reuse it, and I just couldn't get it to work. It didn't feel like, you know, I can't recall much from the moment, of course, but you know, I think if I had enough know-how still in my head to to find it and to recock it, I would think I'd know whether to. I just couldn't. It wasn't explained. It wasn't like it fell nozzle first into dirt, because there was no dirt. There was thick grass and there was leaves. So I just don't. I think that was part of the divine intervention, is what I'm trying to get at. It's like, no, you made a deal with me. We're making this gun malfunction, you know, until you go ahead with it. So then I was okay. Well, this ain't working. I gotta seek out, because I would have loved to just sit there and bled out. I was in that state of mind, but for some reason I was still capable of getting up. I can still recall going back to the, you know, I'm recalling this because I had, you know, I was able, my brain was able to store memory. I could still remember going back to the car, and my wife said they investigated the car later, and so it was full of blood and stuff, because I didn't do it in the car, but I was full of blood going back to the car, and I found the flip phone. I call her, and I'm like, I don't know what graveyard I'm at, because I didn't know the name of it. I was kind of new to that town, and I said, well, we invited a friend from New Jersey to come up, and he came up, and we said, oh, let's take him to Hopkinton Cemetery, and among other places, and we went there, and he took pictures of us throwing leaves up into the air. So luckily we took those pictures, because I was able to recall that and say, remember the pictures where me and you, as a little romantic thing, we threw the leaves up in the air and we just watched them fall down back on us. And she was like, oh, that's Hopkinton. And then gets the police on the phone, the ambulance, and for some reason, you know, I don't remember ending the phone call with her, but I did go back to the spot where where it happened. I don't know why I didn't just stay in the car, but I went back to the spot because it wasn't very nearby. It was the far end of the cemetery, which was a smaller cemetery, but still. And I'm on the other end, and I sit back down Indian style, and I think I go out. I you know, I go out of conscious again. But I did wake up again, where I recall now waking up and seeing a cop in front of me, or you know, the blurry image of one, and and he's sort of got his, you know, he looks like he's in a position to grab his gun at any second, and I'm like, yeah, I don't remember what was said. I was just like, look, I called, here's a situation, do something about it, I guess, and then that was it. I realized I could pass out fully now, and just like, okay, I did my job. And so I don't remember ever getting into an ambulance, ever going to the Concord Hospital, which was right down the road, maybe a mile or two, luckily. And it's the largest hospital in Massachusetts. Maybe Manchester's a little bigger, I'm not sure. But it was in New Hampshire. And they take me in, and they thought they couldn't save me. You know, and this is, you know, the capital of New Hampshire's hospital can't save me. So they helicopter me to Boston General Hospital in Massachusetts, right in Boston. And there, you know, there they did with me what they could. And basically, you know, they did some reconstruction back here, but they couldn't pull the bullet out, because it actually ricocheted my brain and, you know, like turned it into Swiss cheese. And but to extract it would be a major surgery and risk killing me there. So I live with it still embedded in my skull today. But but they just passed me up, but I still was there, I think about 2 months, and I was in a psych ward. And I recall I was in a rubber room for a while, so originally, because they knew I was in for suicide, and they also knew the police were interested in me, and and
Was
so I
it
stayed up there.
painful?
Sorry.
Was it painful?
Well, I do recall not being able to walk for a while, and I needed assistance for a lot of things, sponge bath and all that, and but I don't remember pain. I recall asking for pain meds for my neck because my neck felt like it was broken, and but as far as the head, I'm so grateful because I never had bad headaches. And I was always grateful for that. I'm far more grateful because I have a God to thank for it now, and know why I'm so blessed that way, not to have headaches, because I can't stand headaches, and I'm a total wuss when it comes to headaches. And here I go putting a bullet in my head, not knowing what that's going to do to my brain. And still, I'm not known to have headaches any more than I did, prior to the incident. And
Now, did
so
that leave a crevice or something?
yeah, I guess you can't see it through the camera, but there, and it's behind my ear. But yeah, there's a crater back there. It's only about that thick, and only about that wide. And it used to be back here, and as the bone was fusing, it gravitated behind the flap of my ear. So now it's more behind my ear, and
Did they
there's no
put a
way.
plate in or something?
Yeah, they did a little reconstructive surgery under there, but they left the bone. And I went through a lot of tests, eyesight and hearing, and all that. And I was on a lot of. I was hooked up to a lot of stuff for a long time, and then I get out of there after about 2 months, and then they nursed me back to health while on house arrest in a little beat up old home, which was my mother-in-law's house, deep in the woods of northern New Hampshire, and where I stayed for a house arrest for 2 years while I recovered. And they were trying to determine whether I was mentally stable enough to stand trial for the hate crimes. Now, I don't like the term hate crimes. I think, I still don't like that. It's like, it's a crime. A crime's a crime. They're just trying, to, that's ridiculous, but I'll use the term
It's
because that's what
vandalism, right?
Yeah, it's vandal. It doesn't matter. Why is it any different who you commit the hate crime against, or a crime against? It's still, what does hate got to do with it? Most crimes have to do with hate anyway. But so yeah, so I had to recover at home for 2 years. Then they determined I was able to, I met with many psychologists, and then they saw I was progressing. And, because at first, I couldn't speak well, and I couldn't walk well, and I would see illusions. People looked deformed to me. Everything looked bizarre. I couldn't, very light sensitive for years. And then eventually everything came back. This is in 2023, it'll be 10 years. So I've been recovering for 9 years. So I was just there at home, and yeah, I was facing. So I took a plea deal ultimately because it was just running too long, the whole investigation. So they said, yeah, just accept guilt, and we'll make it 8 months, and you've been through enough, and that's what I did. I did 8 months, and as soon as I got out, I went to live with my sister for a while. And I realized, well, I think I'm okay. And I just went off and went on my merry way. And now I'm independent. I live in Maine. I have no friends, no family here. I'm here a year and a half.
Did your
And I'm
wife
very
leave you?
isolated. And she left me 4 months into my 8 months, county year. sentence. She just called me one day. She went on a road trip. I gave her all my CDs. I had this vast metal CD selection. I said, sell them all, because I can't support you. And she took them all, and she saved the gas money for a road trip. And she went to, she went on the road and went to New Orleans or Louisiana. Then she ended up in South Carolina, where she met a friend from school and the girlfriend. And then her husband got interested in my wife at the time, and they left each other's, left me and he left her for each other. And then she called me while in jail and tell me, I'm leaving you. She only visited me once in jail, once or twice at most. And, and I don't blame her, because I was in the wrong, but I mean, she didn't do better for herself, because this man, her whole family can't stand her, but can't stand this man, but still loves me. I'm in touch with all her family to this day. They love me, but she doesn't. She blocked me online or whatever. I don't go after her. I don't, try to get in touch with her. If that was to work, she'd have to reach out to me. I'd still take her back, but that's really a whole nother story. But yeah, it's sad, because I've become such a better person out of all this, Peg. I could look at myself. I went years without looking at myself in the mirror. I couldn't stand myself. To be that evil and dark, you have to hate yourself too. And I've forgiven myself, and I've been forgiven by God, and I could look in the mirror, and I'm proud of myself. I do great volunteer work since 2017. It was like, I said with my 8 months in jail, I was like, as soon as I get out, I started praying over every meal at jail. Jail meals, they aren't even that great, and I'm thanking God for them. And then I said, as soon as I get out of here, God, I'm living my life for you. It's like, no, I'm still an artist. I got involved in the churches, and I'm very much involved in my church. And up in Maine, I haven't been able to find the right church. I've been to like 8 churches in a year and a half, and still can't seem to find the right one up here. I've known better churches elsewhere, but I still do volunteer work. I go out in Portland, Maine here, late nights, started at 8 o'clock. I join a crew. It's called Street Disciples, and we help the homeless. And we go out there and we give them resources, hot hats, socks, especially now winter's on, granola bars, whatever, information where they can find shelters. And that happens like once a month. And just whatever I could do. I don't even care about this guy anymore. I'm just a service to humanity now, now that's a great deal different from the egocentric, musician, metalhead, artist, illustrator, who's still this illustrator, but I find time still to be myself, and to do good as well. But I'm finding, what I'm finding now, Peggy, is that my fellow Christian is so absorbed. I'm an eccentric, and I'm an eccentric that found Jesus. Most people are normies, as I call them. I think it's a so slightly derogatory term, but it's a kindly derogatory term. It's like, because they're so normal, they're so ordinary that they anything beyond basic perception is beyond them, and they just can't understand that, like, someone that comes from my eccentric, eclectic background, could find Jesus and still be this weirdo, this weirdo artsy guy who's a good guy. I still want to draw dark stuff. If God said, I remember trying to draw angelic stuff. Some people came back, a young woman once came back and she drew Jesus as he actually looks, and painted him. She wasn't even an artist before the near-death experience. Comes back, she's an amazing painter now. And I come back a much better illustrator, in fact. But
it makes me wonder if a lot of depression could be from those of us that hold back who we really are. And then after our NDE, it's like we're in touch with our soul. and who we are, accept ourselves who we are, and we can be that weirdo. We can
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
instead of, you know, who you were wasn't really who you are. The skinhead personality, whatever, you know, you're
Right. Right.
deep down, that's not who you
Yeah.
really were.
Yeah. It's like, I just honestly, in my prayers every night, every morning, I say, God, if there's anything that still needs to go in me, let it go. I'm giving it to you. I'm laying it at the cross. I don't want it. Um, and but my fellow Christians, since I've been doing these shows, sometimes they'll write me and they'll say, you got to get rid of this dark imagery, Ray. That's still Satan talking to you. I was like, no, but look, my crosses are all over the place. They're not inverted. There's no there's no pentagrams. They're just dark imagery. I'm a Gothic soul. I'm just a dark soul. I can't help that. I said, God, if I'm not supposed to be, if this is evil, get rid of it. Now,
Well,
these
you're not
people
hurting
that
anybody with this.
sorry,
You're not hurting anybody with this.
right? I don't want it. I'm not. I don't want to be this dark soul. I just know it's okay to be dark natured. My fellow Christian thinks dark, that's evil. No, it's two different things. There's darkness and there's evil. Now, don't get it wrong. Darkness can lead you to evil. It's a slippery slope. I'll give him that. But but if God said no, Ray, you got to get rid of this stuff. Now, recently the Holy Spirit convicted me. This is my man cave I happen to be in right now, and you see this? Well, it goes all over this room. It's basically an 18-year-old's room, the way I still decorate a man cave. But there was one part where I was feeling guilty, was right over my bed. Kiss, Ozzy, Wasp, Alice Cooper, Venom, and I'm looking up at that while praying to God, and God, that convicted me. God said, "No, open the space over you to me." And so I wiped it all out. I wiped over that section right over my bed, and I feel better. Now the rest of the room is still as ridiculous as what was over the bed, but the conviction went away. So I was like, okay, that's all God wanted me to do. He didn't want me to tear it all down, because it ain't going to change that I'm this old metalhead. You could tear it all down, but you can't tear it from inside you. So this is just an outward expression of myself, and I certainly wouldn't, it's all just entertainment value stuff, like the darker bands. I still feel dirty, I feel bad if I'm interested in a metal band and they use an inverted cross in their logo or something. I'm like, oh, I could get away from that, but just metal in general, there's still a place for that, and I talk to these Christians. No, they just they honestly they're afraid of, oh, Winnie the Pooh said something. They throw Winnie the Pooh out the window. They get just too caught up and trying to be so pure, and God realizes you can never match His purity. You try, but you don't get fanatical about it. And that's a problem with some Christians. I think they worry too much. But I think us NDEers, like me and you, Peggy, we have a view. We got a peek of a little bit more than what the Bible alone offers. And that's going back to reincarnation. The Bible says, it is appointed once for man to die and then the judgment. But I just can't believe that. Because my psychic abilities that developed soon after my near-death experience, and have now sort of faded, but are still there. They've confirmed that there is reincarnation, and yes, I am an old soul that has been to this world many times in many forms, and is just tired of this life, and really thinks that this is the last one, and that's why it was very important I found Jesus, or it wouldn't have been the last one. And I started late in life, so I got a lot of improving to do. But yeah, I went to past life regressionist therapy many years ago, in the early '90s, mid '90s, and yeah, they put you under, and man, the exercise, the things they pulled out of me, it's like she wanted to cut the session short because it was scaring her the lifetime. And it confirmed to me that, yeah, I've led darker lives where I actually enacted evil, like probably murder, God knows what else. And then in this lifetime, I've improved and I turned all that into just negative output. Let me draw it out of me. Let me music it out of me, and that's the new improved me. And I think that's why I don't have any more lifetimes. I also think we're in the end times and there ain't going to be much more lifetimes for anybody else anyway, but that's a whole nother story, but that's that much more detrimental why I need to get this lifetime right. So I don't have to, so I could get to wherever the spirit's meant to go. But yeah, I'm, and that clashes with my faith that yes, I believe in reincarnation. Now why do I, why am I forced to believe it when I don't even want to believe it? I hate the idea of reincarnation. It sounds more frightening than hell. I have to keep reliving life, that loop that they talk about, but I'm forced to believe it. Like I'm forced to believe that, this must be air I'm breathing, but can't see it, but it's filling my lungs and keeping me alive. So it's like that, but
Are the suicidal thoughts gone?
No, I thought they were, but since I come to Maine, I gotten such a raw deal since I've been up here, getting bounced around, such callous people here. Now I'm not getting down on Mainers in general. I'm sure there are some nice ones, and I have met a few, and I'm making a couple some semi friends. But New England is a mindset up here. You're from Ohio, I think, Ray, you said, and it's much different mindset. So I'm not from here, so I could look at it from an outsider too. Although I've lived all throughout New England except Vermont for years, and Mainers tend to be the most stoic, the most private individuals, the most slowest to accept you and take you in, especially if you come, you approach very, I'm from New Jersey, so you notice I could really project my voice, and that scares them, because they're very soft-spoken people. And so I don't fit in here, but I insist on staying here anyway because I love the history, I love the geographics, and I just have to accept the people. But as far as the depression, yeah, they almost led me to devise a whole new suicide. In this past year and a half, I have a means to off myself quick and painlessly again, and I have it in storage, and it's new. It's I don't want to get into it, in talks, but there already a few more miracles have happened that I almost took this device and killed myself with it very recently, and twice. I says, God, I need a job. I'm not going to do this. I got to have a job by this time or I'm done. I have zero will to live. God knows I'm entirely living on His will to keep me alive because I don't want to live. I want to die right now, right in front of you. That's how deeply depressed I am all the time.
Do you have children?
No, never had any kids. Raised a couple girls in 2 long-term relationships. One I was close with up until recently, but yeah, I was a terrible father, but I was raising kids when I was an agnostic and a heathen. So
You don't have kids, but you're a terrible father. You mean like a stepfather?
Stepfather, right? From raising those two for a few years in separate relationships, but they didn't mind me. They thought I was interesting and cool, but I just didn't have time for them. If it was up to me at the time, I would have rather met women without kids. They were just an added burden. But I was good to them, I suppose. Looking back as a Christian now, I'm like, wow, I could have took her places. I could have, had conversations with her. I just blew them off all the time. And
have you ever thought about making yourself a pact? Like, if I think that I'm going to do that, this is what I'll do. Like an alternative, like I will go to the hospital, or I will call this friend, or I will, like a safety plan for yourself.
I'm sorry. I just
Yeah, I
blanked
was
out.
just wondering, like, if you had a safety plan for yourself, like, if I ever think about doing that again, instead, I will do this, like, go to the
Yeah, well,
hospital,
that's
call
why I put it
someone.
in storage. Yeah, exactly. I put it in temperature controlled storage, um, because I have to get at it that way. I have to get the key, and I have to drive to the place, and I have to, you know, I have to put it together there, and
I mean, like,
and
why keep it? I don't
yeah,
know.
there's more of a process. It was in my apartment for a while, and then, wow, it's right there. If I go into one of those dark places, I'll just use it on the spot. Um, so I did rent a storage where I don't need the storage. I just have that device in it, and so it's away from me. It's in the state, but it's a half hour away, but it's away from me. It gives me time to think about what I'm doing, or and but ultimately I know that, very strangely enough, and just since I got close in both instances, the first, I can't get into that, but God, delivered both times. I was like, God, I'm going to off myself. Once again, it was going to be not this past. I just turned 52 in November, but when I was turning 51, I says, I'm going to do it again on my birthday because it's coming up, and I'm in despair again. The world's got me in a really dark, miserable place. Doesn't seem like anybody cares. And I got this device. I'm going to use it. And then right away, the job just fell in my lap. The job I needed. Now I've already been fired from there, but I got another job when I was feeling. So God is like really looking out, and because God knows my heart. He knows that I just have, I just want to be back. It's a problem with NDEers. A lot of times they go through that suicidal phase, especially the ones that had the heavenly experiences that I didn't have, but I had a peaceful experience,
I
and
did
now I
too.
know. Yeah, right. It's with yeah, I got to look at more about your case because I'm not familiar with it, but in any case, they want to go back to that so bad. Well, imagine being suicidal almost your whole life, and then going through that, and then having that post depression, that postpartum depression that new mothers have, new NDEers have too, and so now it's like double in me. It's like I know where I'm going, and no Christian can tell me I'm going to hell if I kill myself, because I also know for a fact that that's not true either. And the suicide cases go to something of a hospital on the other side for cleansing, but
Do you
God
have
doesn't
any
punish.
family, like parents or anybody?
Yeah, I got a mother in Florida, and I got my sister in New Jersey, and that's it really. I got really old friends. You always keep your oldest friends, and but they're in like Arizona, Carolinas, everywhere. Where people just spread out. So there's
A
nobody in
coworker
my.
did that. He was young, really young, like early 20s, and he was having a legal problem like you were.
Right.
And he was coming to me, talking to me at work. And then that morning, he was so happy. He talked to his lawyer, everything's taken care of. But then that night, about midnight, he shot himself
Right.
and died. And then his mom, that was her only child. And so, I see her on the Facebook. It's been, I think, 3 years. And she's just constant agony all the time, especially anniversary of his death, of course. It's constant for her. It's a living hell for her. And I had a guest on here that her husband committed suicide. She had NDE and she was on, and it's just a constant hell what she went through with her husband, because he kind of left a note and blamed her for it and then did it. He was an attorney, a very prominent attorney, and so
Sure.
the people left behind, like your mother,
Yeah.
and I think about my kids, if I would have succeeded, and then, how I would have hurt my children. And you don't think about that in those moments. You're just thinking about your pain. You don't think about how
Yeah.
you're going to
Tunnel
hurt
vision.
the ones that love you. What
Yes. Yes.
hell you're going to put them through. You don't think about it. Because
Right.
in those
Well,
moments, you think nobody cares.
yeah, that's the tunnel vision. You know, everything that you should be thinking about just outside the tunnel, but you're just seeing death. You know, being free of all, you know, that's troubling you inside at the end of the tunnel, and all this is going on. You know, don't do it. We love you. Blah blah blah. You know, outside the tunnel, and yeah, you
It's
can't
like
see that.
romancing the stone, like that movie. It's called Romancing the Stone. You know, you're romancing this bullet. And our youngest adopted son, he pulled a muzzle loader and it jammed. And my husband said, that's impossible. He said, muzzle loaders don't jam. And his wife was standing right in front of him holding the baby and it jammed. She took off to the next apartment and called and, you know, got him in the hospital. But
That's divine
he
intervention.
has that romancing the stone thing, you know. He's always talking about guns and shooting and kill himself. And, you know, it's constant.
Yeah, well, I honestly want to live this life out, you know, as it's written before I got here. But but I also, you know, find that, you know, I did learn from, you know, through all this downloaded information I didn't get into with you, but you know, my psychic abilities were downloads of vast amounts of information, you know, that didn't even, some of it didn't even pertain to life on Earth, you know, because there's the things to know about on other planets where there's life, and that was getting downloaded, and I was just like, my little brain could only, it was like blowing up a balloon beyond its capacity to store all that knowledge. And some of that stayed with me, and that's how I know reincarnation's real. And oh, I just lost my what I want to
Like,
say.
did you
But
download that during your NDE or afterwards?
yeah, after that was a result of having one foot on the other side, I suppose. You know.
Now, do you have brain
And
damage?
do I have brain damage? Oh, certainly, yeah.
Okay.
I can't get an MRI or something like a magnetic X-ray because
Is the
of
bullet?
the metal in my brain. But um, but I, you know, I also like when I returned to tattooing. I was tattooing for a while there, and this went away since then. But I was like, the first time this happened, I was tattooing this woman, and it was something to do with flowers or something. I forget what. And then a dog comes running in the room. You know, it was just so random. And I was like, what is this dog doing in here? Who had a dog? And it wasn't my shop. I was working in New Jersey, on closer to Philadelphia. And so the dog runs in. I'm like, well, is someone gonna? And I thought it like just sat in a corner and stayed there. And I was like, well, is someone gonna get rid of this dog? Someone gonna say something about this dog? Is it just me that just noticed the dog? And I was like, well, what about whose dog is this? And what dog? And like nobody knew what I was talking about. And I mean, it was just as real as any real dog you've ever seen cross your path. And but it was gone when I said, what do you mean it's gone? And it was gone. And I didn't even see it leave the room. You know, I thought it was on some other corner of the room outside of my vision. And I stopped what I was doing. And the person says, I said, well, before the whole thing was over, they said this was a dog memorial tattoo for that person's lost dog, you know, that they were getting. It wasn't a bone or a collar or anything. It was just some flowers. And because of some memory they had with the dog, I guess. And well, this is a memorial to my dog. I didn't want to mention anything. It was, you know, I was like, well, I described what little I saw out of my peripheral vision, and she said that sounds like my dog, you know. And then I was like, wow. And then for a little while after that, you know, I would actually get what psychics get, like, you know. Anytime it was only when it was a memorial tattoo for the most part. And, you know, I'd be in the middle of tattooing them. I'd say, you know what? Somebody wants me to tell you something. And I was like, wow, I've seen this in TV shows. Now I'm doing it. It's like, and, but I wasn't interested in it any more than I was interested in the downloads because they scared me. It was just too much information that we're not intended to know. So, and, I think all that information is restored to our spirit when we cross over. We know everything on the other side there is to know. but we're not supposed to on this side. It's supposed to be limited information here. You know, it's part of the game, I guess, if you want. And so yeah, then that I didn't exercise that ability because I was like, well, I'm a tattooist. I make good money at that. I like what I do. I don't want to be a psychic, you know. So I didn't. It's like a muscle, right? You know, okay, you've been given this as a side effect of your NDE, but you know now you have to exercise it. And I learned later that psychics do have to exercise this, and I didn't exercise it. So now it's for the most part faded, and I don't get this. You know, I don't see dead people anymore, so, or dead dogs.
The dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I appreciate you being so open. I'm sure this will help a lot of people because a lot of people have that ideation, a suicidal ideation, and they really don't. You know, it's something people don't talk about.
Yeah, it's I'm comfortable with it, and I realize if I raise the issue with others, I have to realize they're not comfortable with it. I have to remind them, you know,
Right.
it's like a third leg hanging from me, you know, or arm, and I just, you know, have to. This is weird to everybody else, but I've been living with it so long, you know. But you know, lots of people cross my path. I tattoo strangers every day, and you know they don't hear about it. I'll bring it up, you know, if they bring it up first, and I think I could help them with what I know, and then they're like, you know, then they just glom onto me. What do you know? What can you tell me? I lost somebody that way, and then that's when I feel like I'm helping others and
I think
using
too that
it for
if
good.
I think that if this really is end times, because I don't know, but if it is, I think maybe us NDEers are supposed to be here at this time to help because like maybe something is going to happen, some disaster. And I think us NDEers are going to play a part in helping people. That's just how
Right.
feeling I have. We need to be here at this time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I spent most of my life, you know, just doing as I wish. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law was Aleister Crowley's. And though I wasn't a Satanist, I thought I like that. You know, I'm going to live by that. And so that's, you know, the vast majority of my life. So I got so much catching up to do. You know, I've only been a Christian at 47. They call that a baby Christian. That doesn't mean, oh, I'm a Christian now. And, you know, I don't know nothing at that. You just, you know, you just gave yourself over to Christ, but there's still so much to learn. And what's that, 5-6 years ago for me now? So, so still there's so little I know, but just a lot of catching up to do with the rest of my life. So God also sees why I'm still alive. I think God sees value in me being alive because there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not trying to win over. This is something I never mentioned in an interview, is that, you know, people wonder, Ray, why do you friend request all these satanic metal heads and whatnot that are clearly say. Now, when they wear an inverted cross or something, I'll stay away from them. But if they look like they're probably into that, but not so overtly, I'll friend request them, because they're going to see all my posts. They're going to see how on fire I am for Jesus. And then first they're going to see, well, what a metalhead. He's got some great taste in metal. I'm going to friend that guy. And then, well, oh, wait a minute, he's a Christian. But, you know, because the metalheads will be like, with that. But yeah, you know, now I'm talking to a tattooist in Rhode Island. And first, you know, I approach him differently than a typical Christian. Like a Christian comes at him so soft and tender, and then they're like, "Wow, we're gonna attack this Christian. He's nothing but nice, and niceness is weakness, as far as." But I'm so tough as nails from the life I've led and the things I've
I
been
think
through.
you found your
That,
purpose.
yeah. So I reach out to those who are so. You know, I've saved it, and now he's writing me. First, he was insulting me and laugh emoji in me, but now he's like, well, if that's so, what do you think about this? And then I'm like, I got you. I snagged this one. Then I take the time to, you know, to ease them in. And I have such an angle on my faith that I could express it to them from such a, from this angle that we have to add to it, that they take me more seriously than they would take my own pastor, who I have more respect for than myself, and knows much more about the Bible than I do, but he only has that perspective. What's the written perspective? Well, he also has, the Holy Ghost, and if at times the Holy Ghost will talk through them on the pulpit and whatnot, but we also have this angle. I have this psychic angle where it's like, oh, he's hitting me with this dumb question to try and belittle Christianity or try to downplay it. And I was like, I got an answer for everything they hit me with, and a profound answer at that. And it just stumps them every time. And I was just like, wow, I should be on TED Talks or something, because sometimes I'm just going into, I'm just type. I'm like, wow, I go back, I got to read what I said, because I'm not sure if I'm saying it, because it's still some of that psychic, generating
my husband
through
will
me.
tell me sometimes, he says, who are you and what have you done with my wife? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it makes
And we
what you're
all
saying.
come to that.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes me think of there's a movie called The Perfect Wave, and it's about Ian McCormick's near-death experience. And
Right.
when he had his NDE, he was dead, and they put the tag on his toes. They were taking the morgue, and we had his NDE. He was in heaven, and he was not Christian. His mom was, he was not, but he went to heaven, and he told God, he said, I got to go back. So, because my mom will think I went to hell. He said, I want her to see that I'm in heaven, or that I went to heaven, and God showed him this a whole bunch of people. And he said, see these people, they will never go to my house. They will never go to my church. He says, I want you to talk to them. And I thought of you as you're talking, like you're reaching people that don't go to church, if they're satanic or they're whatever, and you are able to reach those people that no minister ever could.
That's right. And they'll respect me because, well, he's my fellow metalhead. He really knows his way around metal, because I'm a literal walking, biography of metal. I know every subgenre, every, how it evolved. I don't know if this is showing up, but there's me on stage throwing something out in the audience or whatever, and so it's these wacky characters that, they'll take me seriously. So I just wanted to do that. I felt a calling, I guess, but I didn't know it was a calling. But now I'm so caught up in that. I really think that's where God's using me, and I'm just happy to do it.
That's a beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing.
Thank you. So it's because you talk to your typical Christian, and like, oh, and one of the Bible says, what do we have in common with these people? Then I can't think of that, Jesus's own words, maybe, or was some disciple or some, but said, don't yoke yourself up with these people or something. And I can respect that. A lot of times that, the average person shouldn't yoke themselves up with that. But if you have this added gift from God, yeah, and you're familiar with this sub crowd of people that are a unique branch of people that are, most people never could reach. There's my avenue right there, to
you have a purpose.
make an impression on the people that would normally just, they're going to laugh at the typical Christian. They're not going to get through to them. I've been on both sides. You ain't impressing me or scaring me with your darks. I've been there. I've been there more than I've been into Christianity. But they really have to consider all of what I've been through, and that why am I a Christian so late in life? And then you could also look at some notable icons of metal, like Blackie Lawless of Wasp. He's a great Christian now, and only in his much later years now his albums pertain to Christianity and the Bible. And the listeners have to be like, he's doing the same thing. Alice Cooper, he has, you know, you would think, oh God, all the damage he did to the youth and society, but he has a foundation that helps homeless and abused kids go and get off the streets and learn music and stuff, and because he's a born again Christian since the late 80s, and so and Dave Mustaine of Megadeth. Metalheads will know these band names, and he does a lot of good for Christianity. So, you know, I'm just a much lesser known version of that, I think, you know, but
well, I think
yeah,
you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I really think you're doing good, and I love that hand pulled you away from hitting somewhere else, and I love that you weren't able to cock again and get a bullet out, and yeah, you're doing great.
I appreciate it. Yeah, you know, God's given me the strength, and God willing, I'll, you know, as long as I always said, I made, that was the first pact I made with God. God, if you aim this in such a way that I'm supposed to live, I'll live and I'll change. But the next pact was later on, and I says, God, if you just provide, if you always keep a roof over my head, food in my gullet, I'm going to find a way to keep that. That's going to be telling me that you want me to go on. And no matter what I'm feeling and how bad I want to, you know, check out, you know, God's providing, I got to keep going. I wonder how, you know, if I'm doing this as a brain damaged person far away from any help, or I got free health care now because of my, you know, I gave my x-rays and stuff in my head, and that got me free health care here in Maine. But so that was another way, you know, I managed to get by on my own. But yeah, I says, God, you keep providing. That's the new deal. You know, if I'm risking homelessness, you know, and then it's time to check out. There's just certain things I don't want to live. There's
Keep
no more
helping
suffering.
people. Keep
Had
helping
enough
people.
suffering.
And I think you'll
That's
keep
all.
being blessed. You keep helping people. And I think you'll keep being blessed.
That's all I want to do with the rest of my life, you know.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome. It has been so great. I'm so honored to have met you. And I'm so happy that we met up today and was able to do this tonight. And I'll have this ready tonight. Should be ready like probably middle of the night. Takes several hours to get it uploaded, but I'll get it ready.
I'll be watching.
I think
your
it'll
other
help a lot of
shows.
people. I'm sorry.
I got a lot of catching up. I'm going to check out all your other shows, and it looks like you have some really great informative stuff. And I'm just, you know, honored to be among them. And I hope whatever I had to say, you know, help somebody out there. That's the whole reason for doing this, is just, you know, somebody who could relate and make a shift in the right direction for them.
Well, I love guests that are real, and I can tell you're very real. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Ray. I'll talk to you later. Okay. You stay in touch.
God bless you.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, we know how to get in touch from now on. You take care.
All right.